What up, what up, what up? This is your boy Agree to Disagree, and today we're going to be watching a video called Millionaires versus Minimum Wage. This comes from the Counterpoint channel. I thought it was an interesting video, so let's check it out.
Being poor or rich is a choice. We'll start by having everyone that agrees come up now. Pretty even, Steven. I guess we'll start on this side and come across.
Okay, most certainly a choice. And I say that because I've made both. Early on in my life, I was broke and I chose that lifestyle. I didn't necessarily realize it until later and after maturing a little bit, but lifestyle plays a lot into it. Are you drinking a lot? Are you using drugs? How do you treat people? What's your work ethic like? Are you actively trying to improve yourself and become somebody that a business owner would want to hire and give a position of high pay and responsibility on their team? Is your mindset such that you believe in yourself and you believe you can make the changes? Are you operating in limited mindset where this is just always how it's going to be? When I made the pivot and I decided, I'm done living this certain lifestyle. I'm going to be sober. I was really called to learn about Jesus Christ and start following him. That changed my life. I started treating people differently. I was obese. I got myself in great shape. I stopped smoking cigarettes, stopped using substances, as I said, focused on my physicality. I became a man that was an asset to an organization. And then I built up confidence, and that confidence led me to believe, hey, you know what, if that person can do it, if that person can build wealth, if that person can start a business, if that person with hard work and determination can separate themselves from the pack and the masses, why can't I do it? So I've made both choices in my life.
Okay.
I would really like to know what they qualify as rich, because I know a lot of people who are actively busting their ass to try and become rich, but they still fall short. When I think rich, I'm thinking about 500,000 a year. That's less than 5% of the US population. And I know it's not impossible to get to that mark, but a lot of things have to go right for you to get to that annual income.
And how about you?
Yeah, I'm the same way. I personally believe everything in life is a choice. You can take your health, you can take your spirituality, you can take everything as a choice in life. So obviously when it comes specifically to being rich or being poor, I don't think anybody can argue that it's a choice based off of how many millions and millions of people who have came from just absolute poverty. Take Oprah Winfrey. Look at somebody like her and the upbringing that she had with absolutely nothing to now being a billionaire.
I don't really like that example, because when we talk about rags to riches stories, those people are the exception, not the rule. You think Oprah was the only person who had dreams of owning her own talk show and tried their best to try to get there? And this isn't to take away anything from Oprah, but not everyone is born with the same mental capacity. Genetics does play a large part in potential for intelligence. And so it's not to say that she didn't work hard and, learn as much as she could, but there's other factors to consider. And since we're talking about Oprah, she was the youngest and first Black news anchor in Nashville at the age of 19. So we're talking about a prodigy here. We can't just assume that everyone can do what she did.
So yes, there's some people that are born into wealth. Yes, there's, I get that aspect of it. But again, the other side, there's no reason anybody under the face of the earth. Yeah, I get it that there's some people that are out there in, third world countries that don't have access to a phone, don't have access to an internet. But again, in their societies, it's still a choice. There's still things that people do in a third world country out there that again are out there being an entrepreneur. So I truly believe that it is a choice. Like you said, obviously here in America, I definitely don't think you can fight it's not a choice thing. Now, obviously different countries, it's a little bit different. And I know that's what people are usually going to say is, well, hey, what about the person that's in a third world country that lives in a tribe? I get that. But again, even somebody in a third world country, if they have the drive, they have the ability to go out there and want to do better, they can. There's absolutely nothing that's going to stop somebody from doing that. And I do think 100% it's a choice, and it comes down to your actions.
Okay. And now how about y'all?
I partly agree with what he's saying. Obviously, there's always ways that you can improve your economic status. In his example, even if you were living in a tribe with no technology, there's multiple ways you can still gather resources. But I think there's levels to this. For example, if everyone around you was living in huts, but you found a way to build yourself a house, you're still not rich, but you're doing much better than everyone else around you, and you're much better off than where you started. So if you ask me, is improving your economic status a choice? 100%, absolutely. But if we're talking about is becoming rich a choice, that I'm not too sure about.
I both agree and disagree with the statement, only because I think there are some people that are kind of born into families that don't prioritize education like they should. They don't teach those kind of things. They don't, like my dad, for example, he was not born into a family that really prioritized that kind of stuff. And this was before technology came about. So now as he's in his 50s, almost 60s, he never knew how to do those things. Like I'm teaching him a lot of stuff about how to make money, how to invest in certain things in stocks and that kind of stuff. So in those particular situations, I don't necessarily I wouldn't say it's a choice because, he wasn't really born into that. On the flip side of that,
You don't
I
know
do
what you don't know.
think that to an extent it is definitely a choice because just like my dad was on one end of that spectrum, my mom was on the complete other end where she was 25 with 5 kids, working full time and going to nursing school. So she made a lot of sacrifices. Things were really hard and she had to make some tough choices. But, where she's at now, I look at that and I'm like, in times where I'm like, I don't like, this is too much for me. I'm like, but she did that. So if she can do that, I can do this. And so I look when people say, well, it's not a choice. You don't understand. I'm like, I don't understand your particular situation, but I watched one of the strongest women I've ever met, no, the strongest woman that I've ever met in my life come from absolutely nothing to having all her beautiful kids, her beautiful grandkids, having this family that she just absolutely loves. I can't look at that and just say, well, no, that was a choice, or that wasn't a choice because she made those sacrifices to be where she is.
Okay. And how about you?
I think I agree with Deshaun a lot, where coming up here, I was hesitant to come 50-50, where I do think you're right, your experience, picking yourself up by the bootstraps, basically, it's hard work. And
It's interesting he used the phrase, pick yourself up by the bootstraps, because I believe it was Martin Luther King who said, it's a cruel jest to tell a bootless man to pick himself up by his bootstraps. The thing is, there has to be a path forward before you can walk that path. People don't just become rich. They first have to arm themselves with tools, knowledge, and materials to start.
I think that gets you where you want to be. However, I do think that there's opportunities and issues that aren't caused by oh, I didn't choose obviously to be born in this space, or I didn't choose to be given this opportunity or not given this opportunity. But I do think at the end of the day, if you have the drive or if you have the want to do it, and I think it is possible. I just think that the gap of how far you can go can sometimes be obscured or make an obstacle, a wall in your way, or be a little bit hindered from where you start.
Okay, cool. And now we'll bring up our one disagreeer.
I'm very unsure of how to feel about this question. This is something that when you sent it to us, I struggled with. Like I said, growing up in foster care wasn't necessarily something that I could choose. Getting thrown out and being 18 and just kind of having to do what I had to do to get to where I am today. And I may not be in the best spot, but I did have to work hard. Health-wise, right now, I'm not even supposed to work. So this is where I'm very it's a choice. If I could work, I'd be out there working or doing more work, but it's really hard for me to even be out in public because I never know when something's going to happen and I never know where I'm going to be or if anyone knows, where I am or what's going on. So I can't say I agree and I can't say that I disagree. I'm very just kind of riding the wave.
What do you guys think? I guess if there was some way that it couldn't be a choice for somebody, do you guys think there's any exceptions, or do you as a whole think that no matter your situation, you can make something happen?
I think for sure there's exceptions. Medically, that's certainly, there are folks that just, they can't work. They can't, you're not just, hey, just go give it a little more, a little more effort. I mean, that's not reasonable to say to somebody, and extremely disrespectful to say to somebody. So when I heard the question, to me it was, in other words, all things being somewhat equal, capable human beings, and not to say medically, there are sometimes medically some people might not be as capable, or in developmental situations. So those need to be considered. I took it from a personal perspective. You talked a couple times about, it's at 18 years old, at 17 years old, I wasn't in foster care. My dad bought me a set of luggage for graduation, and 2 days after I graduated, I got thrown out. Haven't lived at home since. Living on people's couches, no job. You got to figure it the F out. I mean, that's just the way life is, right? You have to take ownership of your situation. You talk about effort. There's one of the things that's kept people from realizing success is a choice, is the choice of accepting entitlement and having people give you handouts and telling you that you can't do. Don't worry about it. We got you. We'll take care of you. So the choice to take handouts and entitlements. Now, there's a place for those. Don't get me wrong, but a lot of able-bodied people love to have their representatives tell them, you know what, it's not your fault. Just take this. We'll take care of it. Whereas, you know what, I don't need that. I'm going to go to work. I jumped into the car business in my early 20s, sold cars, and figured out I could move up the chain into management and eventually partnership. I went on a stretch of a dozen years without taking a week off, and working 7 in the morning till 8, 9 o'clock at night. And that's what it takes. And what I loved about that field is, I'm not, hey, this is great for the car. This is a car business pitch. I'm not saying that, but let me tell you something about that type of field. What I loved about it was, if I'm willing to work longer and harder and talk to more customers and do more than the guy in the cubicle next to me, I'm going to move up, make more money, and have more opportunity than him. Sign me up. Other fields in our country, unionized things, a lot of times factory things, the dude sleeping on a roll of paper towels in the break room is getting the same money as the person busting his ass. That ain't going to work. So when you talk about choice to become wealthy, figure out what kind of operation you want to work in, what kind of organization, and what kind of opportunities you want to be afforded, because that's a big choice.
Do you guys?
I agree with what he's saying, but I have some caveats. It's not just about working hard and working long hours, because you could be working a job where, that job requires you to work 8 to 5, and you can't really do the job outside of those business hours. And you can bust your ass, but maybe you don't get noticed by management, or maybe the manager doesn't like you, so you can't move up the ladder. So it's not just about working hard. You also have to be strategic, and also you have to be smart about what career path you choose. And while I was listening to him talk, I noticed he used the word success. And I agree that 100% that success is a choice, But then he used the word wealthy. And then that's where I kind of disagree, because let's say you grow up in an environment where everyone around you is making $35,000 a year, and you are the one who decides to work hard, bust your ass. You're the first person in your family to graduate college. And after years of hard work, you manage to get a job making $100,000 a year. Now, you're still not wealthy, but you greatly improved your lifestyle and broke generational curses. That's a win. And I just looked online. It says in the United States, about 56% of people who enter poverty exit within 1 year. But this rate drops to 13% for those in poverty for 7 or more years. While roughly 60% of children born in the lowest income quintile may reach a higher quintile, only 16% of persistently poor children escape poverty by the age of 30. So basically, the longer you're in poverty, the harder it is to make it out of poverty. So what that tells me is that your environment has a huge impact on your chances of reaching success.
Think like especially here, like how about being in America, right? In comparison to the world, how much more of a choice do you think is more of a choice here in America than other places, or even kind of in the middle?
I guess I would say, in my perspective, from immigrant parents, the reason why immigrants go to America is for the opportunity of choice. And so, like, from that logical point, I could say, like, yes, it gives you a choice, but I also do think that, like, putting it in a bubble, like, oh, this place will give you more choice, or like, just because you're in America doesn't mean you're gonna get every choice. I think there's like spots where like you chose a job where there was lots of room for growth, and I feel like some people, like, albeit like, might not get that choice, or might not have that current opportunity to progress in like the way that lets them move to a choice that gets them to that job where they're like stuck somewhere else.
Possibly. Tell me a country or two where the opportunity is greater than America. I'd be curious.
Genuinely not sure. That's why I was like kind of hesitant, because I think there is a lot of opportunity in America. I kind of want to say like maybe the Nordic countries that have a lot of like universal universities and like universal healthcare. That
As much crap as people talk about the United States, there is no other country that gives you more opportunity for growth than the United States. This is the land of opportunity.
kind of give more opportunity for their community, their citizens, to have room for growth, to get a second piece of education, or not have to worry about crippling debt from medical. And I think those guys might have a lot more choice, but albeit have probably higher taxes. I think it's like a give and take of what you want, I think.
Slippery slope, though. Sorry, slippery slope. Government gives more handouts to those people. Don't confuse that with they have more choice.
Well, I was going to say, because you kind of hinted on it a little bit, and I was kind of waiting for someone to hint on it. I think a lot of times, too, people say it's a choice or it's not a choice because they say, well, if people, for instance, I would choose to go out there and do better if I had more money to start a business, if I had X, Y, Z. And again, I'm sure you are too. I've accumulated a good amount of wealth. That started because I was willing to invest money I didn't have. I was willing to put in the extra work. I was willing to, again, hey, to start this XYZ business, I need $5,000. I personally think 95% of Americans are just going to say, well, I don't have $5,000, so therefore it hinders me, and now I don't have the opportunity. I completely disagree. You can go work another job. You can get a third job. I've had 3 jobs. I think that's a big reason a lot of people say that it is a choice, because, like, for better words, like you said, they would rather just say, well, I wasn't given XYZ like this other person was. But again, they point at other people who are in a better situation. Guarantee you 8 out of 10 people that you speak to in our shoes, we might have been worse off than the other people that are saying that, hey, I don't have the money, I don't have the time. And I completely disagree with that. I think anybody, again, it's a typical saying. You could take a millionaire and somebody who's working at McDonald's, you strip them of everything, the millionaire will become a millionaire again, and the guy at McDonald's will end up working at McDonald's again. And that's
I definitely disagree with that. If the millionaire grew up with money, then he doesn't know what it's like to grow up in the trenches. You take some of these rich guys and you put them into projects, they're not going to know what to do with themselves. Now, if the millionaire grew up in the trenches and then became a millionaire, yes, I agree. If you stripped him of everything, then he would find a way to work his way back. I think the other thing that holds people back is if they never seen it happen before, they don't believe it's possible. A lot of people don't know what's on the other side of their hard work, blood, sweat, and tears. A lot of people are afraid that if they bust their ass and they work hard, that at the end of it, they won't be rewarded for it. And that happens more than people think.
I think, again, that's why it's a choice.
I feel like I agree with like some of what you said, where like I think it does take a lot of work, and I think when someone compares themselves to others, that's when they limit themselves to like their own universal bubble, where it's like almost like woe is me. But I think that broadening that out to other people that are also struggling kind of diminishes the value of those other people. Like, for example, I was working 3 jobs and I could make $5,000, but I needed like $3,000 of that money just to like finish paying for my debt, or like I had a concussion and I had to go to the ER and that was a whole arm and a leg, So it's like there are these opportunities, yes, but also just because it worked for you doesn't mean it can work for everybody. And I think like keeping that in mind is also pretty important.
One more quick perspective when we talk about choice. A choice that we haven't touched on is, who are you surrounding yourself with? If you're dead broke and everybody in your life has the same mentality and they're dead broke and, well, it's just our lot in life and we're never going to get there, and they don't encourage, you're not in a circle where there's encouraging you to get better and become more, you're going to stay stuck. You hang out with 4 broke people, you're going to be the 5th. You hang out with 4 obese people, you're going to become the 5th. You become who you're spending time with. So
while I understand the concept of surrounding yourself with like-minded individuals who are also striving for success, telling a bunch of broke people to go find millionaires to hang with is not the easiest thing to do. Chances are, if you grow up in poverty, everyone you know is also in poverty. And even if a millionaire happened to come along the way, what are the chances that they want to hang with your broke ass? Every now and then you might get lucky and find someone who's willing to take you under their wing. But think about it. If they got rich by surrounding themselves with rich people, then why would they want to surround themselves with poor people? And it's opportunistic when you think about it, because you're only hanging around them because they can do something for you. But it's really a one-sided relationship because you can't really do much for them. So it's really tough getting into those circles unless you meet someone who's willing to reach back and give you a hand up. I'm gonna go ahead and stop it there. If you want to see the full video, I will go ahead and put a link in the description below. I think that was a good discussion. I would say that being poor is definitely a choice, but I would say being rich is not a choice. If being rich was as simple as a mindset change, there'd definitely be a lot more millionaires. Not everyone can be an entrepreneur. Not everyone can get rich the same way that someone else got rich. You know, maybe they entered the market when there was less competition and now the market is oversaturated. Sometimes it's about being at the right place at the right time. I'll tell you a quick story. I had a family member who had a disabled son. And at the time, there wasn't a separate bus for disabled kids. So he got a bus and started picking up the disabled kids within that district. And it was working so well for the schools that he was able to expand his business, and now he's a millionaire. You know, he wasn't some super genius. He just saw that there was a need and he provided a solution. Sometimes it's just as simple as that. I like to say greatness happens when hard work meets opportunity. And for some people, that opportunity never comes. But I say get ready so that way when the opportunity does come, you're able to take advantage of it. All right, that's all I got for this video. Please let me know, what points did you agree with? What points did you disagree with? Please leave your comments below and let me know what you thought. And if you want to see more videos like this, hit that subscribe button. And if you got anything out of this video, hit that like button. Disagree to disagree. I'm out.